Welcome to the physiology of yin, an exciting chapter to learn more about the breathing system, the nervous system, the polyvagal theory, and most importantly, how the three of them are connected. In this physiology of yin, we're going to look mostly at what we also refer to as body mind medicine and how these three layers of Annamaya, Pranayama, and Manomaya Kosha are interrelated, and therefore how we can use the practice to affect those systems. But let's first learn about the system. So we, as already mentioned, we're going to cover a little bit more or repeat more of the structures of the breath body. And in further detail, you find that inside the program as well, about the nervous system, and we're going to learn about the 3 or 4 branch system of the polyvagal theory. Let's get started. All right, the breathing system. It's this beautiful exchange system, really, between the outside world and the inside world, and symbolizes as well. I like to think of it as the tide, something that comes and goes, and how the conscious breath really represents an anchor in the currents of life. When we look at the structure of the breathing system, one system I really want to point out is the diaphragm. The diaphragm, this dome-shaped muscle, separates the upper from the lower cavity. And every time we take an inhale, it actively contracts down and creates a suction in the lungs, creates more breath to come in. And as we exhale in the natural breath, it just relaxes back. Now, in yogic, conscious yogic breathing, it's really important. We take the inhalation, the pranavayu, as something to find space in the body. And then when you exhale, we maintain that space as opposed to collapsing with the exhale. And that makes it very active and very rich in this breathing exchange, in this conscious exchange of external and the internal. Now, before we go into the nervous system, I like to touch upon 2 terms. And the first is neuroscience, and the second is neuroplasticity. Neuroscience really describes our system, our nervous system, as the system designed for survival, right? And this works most of the time very well, but it can also be paradoxically the exact same system that stands in our way if triggered. And that's where the awareness of it is a key component to understanding our perception, really, our neuroperception, the perception of the world, and how that is pretty much a measure of the state of our nervous system. There's a famous saying, the world is not as we see it, it is as we perceive it. So the perception really colors how we receive it. However, that's extremely dependent on your actual state. And the second term, neuroplasticity, it describes the ability of the neural system, everything related to nerves, to be interchangeable. A brain can change. You can compensate, lose a leg, and your body finds a way of compensating that differently. And it's very important that we understand that even how, not necessarily how our nervous system gets triggered, but how we respond is changeable through awareness. It's extremely important term in neurology, really, and describes our ability to learn and change. let's look at the nervous system. Our nervous system. So we divide our nervous system into a central nervous system, the CNS, which includes brain and spinal cord, and the PNS, the peripheral nervous system, which is pretty much the yellow spaghettis going through the bodies from exiting the central cord. And then the third one, and that's the one we talk about, is the VNS or autonomic nervous system, which we are familiar with. So in the past have taught or been learned that this is a two-branched system. So existing of sympathicus and parasympathicus. Going into activity, fight, flight, freeze, maybe you heard those terms before, or into rest, digest. Yeah, it's considered this like two-branch system. And really, what polyvagal teaches us is that it's not just a two-branched system, it's actually a three, and as you'll learn in a bit, a four-branched system. And that has brought an enormous learning curve to working with the nervous system and how we perceive the world. Before I get into the polyvagal, I like to look at the vagus nerve. All right, our vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve out of 12. And as you see in the image, spreads through the whole facial mimic area of the head into the area of the anything above the diaphragm and the area anything below the diaphragm. So entire core really. It communicates with all these organs on a constant basis. It most importantly also monitors the diaphragm. That means if the vagus monitors the diaphragm, it means also that if we start affecting the diaphragm through the practice of yoga, through the practice of yin, through the positions we hold, through breath and awareness, contact breathing, all that, we can affect, therefore, the other way around, the afferent way around, the state of the nervous system or what it communicates inside the body. Entering the polyvagal, I would like to start with this beautiful saying from Deb Dana, and she's done a lot of work of applying the polyvagal theory into real life situations. Polyvagal theory is the science of feeling safe enough to fall in love with life and take the risk of living. It says it all, right? So let's look at what she means when she looks at those states, or what we refer to as a three-branched, first three and then we go into the four, three-branched system. No longer are we just talking sympathicus, parasympathicus, but we now understand in the three distinct branches that it's a state. I'll skip this one, but feel free to stop the video so you can read through that, of ventral vagal, which is the green area, relating to, everything's well, everything is balanced, everything is optimal. Also the social communication system. Yeah, if you're social, chatty, we look each other in the eye, we're definitely in the ventral vagal, in the green. Now, as we get activated, we head into what's yellow here or orange. If you think of street lights, a fight flight instinct, activation, getting up in the morning and getting your work done. There's a certain sympathetic activity about that, right? So it's the fight, the flight. But of course, it can always, it has ladders to it. Yeah. Now, the third branch polyvagal theory adds is the freeze, which is the red part, the dorsal vagal activity, yeah, which is basically a reaction of stuckness, a freeze response. You could see that clearly in a hedgehog, for example, that has not the ability to fight or flight in situations of danger, but it freezes. Like, this is the safest place to be for that animal in a life-threatening situation. Same happens to humans. It is a state of numbness, potentially denial, absence of joy, and stuckness in life. Now, what's very interesting in this three-branched view of the nervous system, the polyvagal theory, is the fourth branch. And I'd like to take you into an image from the holistic psychologist who has done so much valuable work of bringing this into also the perception of emotions. And in this latter system, the colors have slightly changed, but theoretically they're the same, ventral vagal, the green state, connector mode, social engagement system. You're safe, you're social, we're connected to the world, to ourselves and the world around us. Then the activated, here they change colors to red, but that could be orange if we take the streetlight system, fight or flight, eruptor or distractor mode. We get activated, and ideally we bounce between green and what's here, red, right? But it can keep going, and as it keeps going, it doesn't go straight to freeze, but there's the fourth branch now, and the fourth branch is the pleaser mode, the fawn response, or also called the tend and befriend response, the pleaser mode. A state of feeling unsafe, maybe not conscious, but we are hyper vigilant and we go into over adaptation, over pleasing in order to remain safe. I think we all know examples of that state. And it's fascinating that a young, like cute, sweet animals, they kind of, they activate that in us. They're so cute and sweet. So you take care of them, right? Because they're so pleasing. But they depend on their very survival on pleasing. So it is a natural response. However, if it gets unsafe, then we end up again in the dorsal vagal state, which is a state of stuckness. I'll share a PDF to this exact model in the course where you have each state taken apart into the emotions that go with it. Now, an extremely important term is the window of tolerance. Window of tolerance refers to the zone of optimal arousal. So it's not too much, not too little. We get out of bed, but we are not hyper aroused all day. So where you can manage and thrive in life, not just survive, thrive within daily life. And this window of tolerance can get expanded through practice. And we'll look at what that practice could mean. The practice of expanding the window of tolerance will be referred to as self-regulation practice. And self-regulating means we become aware of what's going on and then take measures to either come back into window of tolerance or remain in there or just expand it. Yeah. And once you get a sense of how your autonomic nervous system is feeling, then you can choose how to respond. And remember, everyone has a different autonomic nervous system. And this gets shaped not just throughout life, but a lot of it is being shaped pre-uterine. So while you're in mama's belly. So research shows that the state of the nervous system of the mother is almost creates an imprint for the nervous system of the unborn. So that can be very determining. Looking at the self-regulating practices, I like to split them up in, different areas. And keep in mind, though, we could really expand that list big time. So we have everyday practices: singing, chanting, co-breathing, hugging, perhaps gardening, petting your dog. The list could go on and on. Just that we usually don't call them practices, right? But in terms of self-regulation, we are. Then we have body practices. So everyday body practices: hand over heart, noticing your heartbeat, body scan, awareness practices. Like Yoga Nidra would be an example to a guided body scan. Cold water exposure, dancing, yoga, running, everyday body practices that maintain self-regulation. We have third, awareness practices. That could be loving kindness, practices, compassion practices, practices we know from the yamas and niyamas as well in the language of yoga, meditation, and so on. We have breath practices that go straight to the breathing system. So to list them up, that would be contact breathing, not just contact, but like hand over heart, but actually expanding the breath into it and noticing the motion of the breath. It could be simple abdominal breathing with hands or no hands, breathing into the belly, feeling the expansion, having a proper contraction, again, control of the diaphragm. And it could be actual diaphragmatic breathing, expanding now three-dimensionally through the rib cage, front, side, and back, and getting the diaphragm action really going, so it doesn't stay in a superficial adrenaline enhancing breath, but into the kind of breath that we are naturally in when we're in ventral vagal. We have Shitali or many, many other breathing techniques that we know from the practice of yoga. There's assisted practices that need something external, which is, for example, HRV, heart rate variability, very important scientific measurement to where your nervous system is actually at and the ability of it to regenerate. We can measure that through most of our, heartbeat monitors. There's neurofeedback, very popular in trauma therapy. It's also EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, somatic psychotherapy, and hypnosis. I'm not going too much into detail of that, but what I would like you to do right now, just to summarize so far what we have, is to close your eyes and simply listen. I'm going to read it to you. Nervous system dysregulation will keep you from feeling connected, happy, or at ease. Whenever your neuroception detects danger, your survival response roars into activation, being in either fight, flight, or shutdown immobilization response, increases feelings of disconnection, unhappiness, and stress. Does that sound familiar? Polyvagal theory offers a map to understand the different types of survival response you have. It is also helpful to think of your window of tolerance and ask yourself where you are on the map of your nervous system. This can alert you to engage in an appropriate practice to return to your arousal level into your own window of tolerance. With practice, you will be able to notice sooner. When you begin to move into defensive activation, fight, flight, or shutdown, using the above practices, you can shift your arousal into the window of tolerance before you flip your lid. Let's see how that resonates. Feel free to open your eyes again. And then just come back to this image of balance. To give you one more image. When the ventral vagal and the associated social engagement system are optimally functioning, the autonomic nervous system supports health, growth, and restoration. Increased sympathetic reactions may result in defense reactions that will inhibit the function of the dorsal vagus to promote, or we'll fix that, immobilization strategy, just as fight or flight behaviors are shut down. So it's also the state where the body likes to go into inflammation, pains, and such. So again, the body-mind medicine really could learn a lot from this map of the polyvagal theory. Dr. Ariel Schwartz summarizes it as, by developing an understanding of the workings of your vagus nerve, you may find it possible to work with your nervous system rather than feel trapped when it works against you. Now, how does all of this relate to the practice of yin? In the practice of yin, we take a more quiet approach to asana that actually gives us time to listen, to feel and respond, and make not just the pranayama kosha more conscious to us and work with that. Let's say I'm in a side stretch and I notice how my ribs move and expand the side intercostal space, therefore massage and move the diaphragm attached, right? And therefore affect the diaphragmatic breathing and the information I'm telling my body, not just through the physical part, but we also get more of the manomaya kosha work where we notice and listen and therefore can notice things that maybe in a rigorous asana practice we don't get the time. It is possible to stay in a fight-flight response through more rigorous practices and notice less. In other words, we can also see how we can affect the vagus nerve through the practice of yin. This is a sample image through, let's see what's related through yin. Okay. Breathing exercises, check. Cold exposure, not so much. Humming, check. Gargling, not typically. Social connection, 100%. Earthing, 100%. Massage, potentially some myofascial self-release, or you could include in your yin yoga practices foot massages or releasing certain areas of your body as you're in a pose, guiding people more deeply into their body. Singing, definitely, if we include mantra. EMDR, not so much unless we do that type of kriya work through eye motion, but it's really a specific technique. Meditation, check. Mammalian dive reflex, not directly. Emotional freedom technique, not directly. But we see a lot of the practices that affect the vagus nerve are a natural part of the practice of yoga, but even more so, really reached and in closer access with the practice of yin, a more grounding, descending, softer practice. So let's dive into catching up on information you want to deepen through the additional lectures, and we'll talk and exchange soon. Namaste.